Book Bites with Maggie. We're coming to you live from the Napanee Public Library to talk about books that are featuring a small town or take place in a small town today. If you're new to Book Bites, welcome. This virtual Reader's Advisory program is going to be coming to you one time this month in September, and we're going to be talking about stories that take place in small towns. We're going to highlight books that are specific to the Napanee Public Library collection, and during the course of the program, it'll be my goal to let you know what formats our titles are in and available to our readers here at the Napanee Public Library. If there's books that interest you, you're welcome to let us know in the comments. We would be happy to set them aside for you, and you can come in and pick those up at your convenience. Today is Thursday. We're leading into Labor Day weekend, and when that happens, we're going to be closed on Sunday and Monday, but we'll be able to still have our holds available for pickup around those closings. So again, if a title piques your interest, let us know in the comments, and we would be happy to set those aside for you. You can also place holds from our catalog by signing into your library card, and if you need assistance doing that, we'd be happy to help. The titles that I have for you today come from all different areas of our collection. The first one is not going to be an author that's new to those of you who have joined us for Book Bites before. Frederick Bachmann's books have circulated very, very well around the library staff and now in the extended community. These books come to us in translation, so oftentimes the language that it's written in is going to be published a year, maybe even earlier than that, in their homeland, and then the translation takes a little bit of a delay before it comes to the United States. Frederick Bachmann wrote A Man Called Uwe, which many people have read. He wrote Britt Marie Was Here. So this is another trilogy that is coming from him. Beartown is the first book in a series that takes place in a very small town that doesn't have much to its name other than its high school hockey team. In the first book, that's this one here, we learn that the whole town is riding on these high school boys' back. And in the story, when something happens, it affects not just the high school and just the athletes that are on this hockey team, but it affects the coaches and it affects the students' families and so on and so forth. And the ripple effect of one incident that takes place in this first book drives the entire story. Who are they going to believe when everybody in town knows each other's business? It doesn't read like a thriller, but there are definitely climatic points where you can't believe what is happening, and the character building in this story is excellent. The second book, Us Against You, is also available. It takes place just shortly after this first one does, and you kind of get, you still get the feeling of what the town feels like after the incident that happens in this first book. In the third book that has not been translated into English yet, that one I'm very curious to see what they do with that. So the first book is One Town, Beartown. The second one is Us Against You, and that one there's like a rival hockey team that is like taking players from the initial team and vice versa, and there's lots of conflict that way. So I'm curious to see where they go with the third book. It's already on my list of books to read. So again, this is Beartown. This one we have as a physical book. We also have it as an ebook, and I have read from multiple sources that it's been optioned for an HBO miniseries. So we'll see if that actually happens. If this is a book that you're interested in, just leave us a message in the comments and we'll be happy to put your name on it. The next book that I'd like to highlight for you is from our inspirational fiction section. This is from the Love Finds You series by Summerside Press. Unfortunately, just a few years ago, Summerside Press was disbanded, and the company that snatched up this printing press no longer features these books and highlights them. But I feel like there's at least 50 titles in this series. The Napanee Public Library does not have them all, but they read like standalone titles in the inspirational fiction section. The way this whole series is written is it takes place in the United States, and each book is based on a town that really is in existence in the United States. This one specifically is in Valentine, Nebraska. It's by Irene and throughout the entire series, you can read them as individual stories. Some of them are like modern day books, others are more historical in value, but they take lots of towns that have unique names and they build a story around them. So like this one's Valentine, Nebraska. There's Groom, Texas. There's Snowball, Arkansas. All kinds of fascinating towns that you get to know a little bit more about the town themselves and the places where their setting is, but you're not going to actually learn about real people. So it is fiction. They're all very, very soft, inspirational, not romance, inspirational fiction stories, which means they could have some religious themes to them. And several of them have even been turned into movies. So Charm, Ohio, this one, Valentine, and Sugar Creek all have movies. And when you're reading the books, they feel like you are reading Hallmark movies. So if that is your cup of tea, this might be a series that you could definitely have on your radar. It's currently upstairs in our inspirational fiction section. And even though multiple authors come together to write this series, we have them grouped together on our shelves, so it's easier to locate those. This one we only have in a physical book. We do not have it as an e-material, but you can also check out the Valentine movie if you want to read one and then watch it, or vice versa. If this is a book that would be interesting to you and you'd like us to place it on hold, we would be happy to do that. The next title I have for you is the second book that I read by Louise Miller. The City Baker's Guide to Country Living is one that I read several years back, and this one was not on my radar at all until a friend said, "Hey, did you see there's a new book out by Louise Miller?" And so I picked it up. This one is a super fast read. It only has about 150 pages to it. And the storyline, again, just like our theme, takes place in a very small town. Our main character is like a cafe owner who knows the ins and outs of all of her clientele. She knows how everybody likes their eggs, and she knows what's going on in their lives. And so she has that entrepreneurial spirit of owning a cafe, but really knowing her clientele. What happens in this story is she finds out that she is being left a piece of property, a homestead, by one of her customers. And it's not being left just to her. It's actually being left to her and her sister. And in our story here, the Kit, who's the sister, she desperately wants to be a filmmaker, to the point that she has exhausted all of her income in order to make that dream a reality. And now she's money hungry to sell her half of this property that's being bestowed to her and her sister, so that she can have the income to continue on with her filmmaking aspirations. The story of the characters building together create a very interesting setting amongst themselves because of the conflict and what happens. There's a fire that takes place, a dog goes missing, and so it's just, when there's a small town, you get to know all the characters in such an integral way. And this was a 5-star read for me when I had read it a couple of years ago. The Late Bloomers Club has a bike on the cover. I don't know why. There's nothing to do with a bike in the book, but it's eye-catching. You want to pick it up and read it, but if you're looking for a story about a bike, this has nothing to do with one. So kind of disregard that. We do have it as a book, an ebook, and an e-audio book. If you have your Nappanee Public Library card, you'll be able to access those digital materials with your Overdrive and Libby accounts. If you need assistance doing that, please let a staff member know. The next book that I wanted to highlight is technically checked out, so I'm thrilled to say that somebody is already enjoying this book. This was a 5-star read for me this year, Under the Magnolias by T.I. Lowe. This is one that I actually picked up because of the cover. I thought, oh, this looks really, really good. Now, what I didn't realize was that T.I. Lowe has been published multiple times, and so since I read this first one, I loved it. I went back, I read some of her previous work. Some of it brushed on just being soft, but her, what I'd say probably her 2 most recent books, Under the Magnolias, this one, and Lulu's Cafe, holy stinking cow, the emotions that go into these stories, they are not soft stories. So if you're not looking for something that's got a lot of grit, you need to find it elsewhere, because this book, specifically Under the Magnolias, has heavy themes of mental illness. In our story, our main character is Austin Foster. She is just 16 years old when her mother passes away during childbirth, and her father, they never really give him a diagnosis, but he, within the text, you understand that he's going through his own mental anguish of losing his wife, and Austin kind of takes over as the surrogate mom of her 6 younger siblings, and she leaves school so that they can have food. She just becomes the motherly figure to her siblings, and so it's a coming of age story, but it really is, it takes place all the way from when she's 15, 16 years old up until she's an adult and coming into her own. So it's a fantastic story. Again, not a light story at all. But if you're looking for a book that it has strong family values, but it also opens up great dialogue and conversation with mental illness and the grief process, this would be an excellent book to pick up. Under the Magnolias, we do have as a physical book in our collection. We also have it as available as an ebook. Again, it is currently checked out, so if it's one that you'd be interested in, we'd be happy to put it on hold for you when it is returned to the building, and you'd be able to pick that up at your convenience. The last book I wanted to share with you is the first book in a trilogy. The third book is going to be coming out pretty soon, but A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is from our teen section. This is by Holly Jackson, and I listened to this book as a digital e-audio book, and I thought it was fantastic because this was a full cast audio story for me. I'm not really big into thrillers, but the storyline of this book takes place in a very small town, much like these other ones where everybody knows your business. And in this one, the main character, she picks up on kind of a cold case of something where everybody knows who did it, or they think they know who did it. And she picks up this cold case, and she actually opens it up as like her senior project and tries to trace down and interview people who are around when the crime actually happened. What she ends up doing is stepping into large holes, getting herself into trouble, and it is a fast-paced book. And again, we have this as a physical book, but the e-audio book, or like just listening to it, was a fantastic way to be totally immersed in this story. What our main character ends up doing is she develops a podcast. So as you are listening, you hear her like broadcasting her findings. You also hear her interviewing other people, and the multiple voices that read those parts of the book just make it an immersive experience. So A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is the first book. The second one is called As Good as Dead, and that one literally picks up just moments after this one ends. And then there's a third book that's going to be coming out pretty soon, and it's As Good as Dead, and that one's on my list. So hopefully it is a thrilling ending to this trilogy. And don't be scared to read teen books. If you are an adult, there is no shame in checking out a teen book. The storylines are often fascinating, and I can guarantee that you will not regret it. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is available as a book, an ebook, and we also have it as an e-audio book. Again, both of those electronic versions would be available with your Napanee Public Library card when you're using Libby and Overdrive. That's it for our small town book selections here during today's episode. Next month in October, we're going to be featuring 2 different episodes. The first one being books about Teen-tober. So look forward to joining us for our next episode where we feature lots of teen titles. This episode is going to be left on our NPL Facebook page, so you're able to access it at different moments. Let us know again in the comments, reach out to us in a direct message, give us a call or stop in if you would like to check out any of our items that were mentioned today. And we will see you again next time for Teen Titles.